My name is Shane Embury. I play bass for Napalm Death, and Venomous Concept, and Brujeria, and Lockup, and various other assorted projects, but mainly Napalm Death. I joined them when I was 19. 5,500, 6,000 shows later, I'm still here.
How would you describe your music to an alien?
To an alien, I'd actually like to throw him into the dark and go neoclassical, avant-garde, jazz rock, fusion, noise grind. I've been thinking about that for many years. To an alien, I don't know. I'd suggest it's probably like the Great Big Bang Theory mixed with some sort of sonic alchemy from a distant future or past. Going back to my childhood, which I'd mentioned briefly before, but not in this detail. It brings up a lot of emotions in my family, especially my mum. She recently passed away, but she was quite instrumental to me. My dad sort of appreciated it much more later, but my mum was very instrumental in buying me Slade 7-inches or the Sweet 7-inches and the Top of the Pops thing, and that's where it really introduced me to guitar to me, So that was. Those memories are strong of my first band back in the village, because if you grow in a village in Shropshire doing extreme death metal, it's completely off kilter to anyone else, really, So there's a lot of memories attached to that, and then you start to also recognise the network of friends that you've built around all that they've gone off to do different things as well. So yeah, there's a lot of emotion tied into everything I do, I think, really. Broseley is a village which is quite an old history near Ironbridge, Shropshire, and my friend guitarist used to carry his H&H guitar amp up on a skateboard to the local arts centre, and that was £4 a week to practice, and people were like, "What the bloody hell's that noise?" But it was a little different now, but. It was a bit tough, being it was definitely outcast for sure. I think I was a homebody when even as much as I loved music, I've never really been anywhere. You don't really go, you don't travel, especially back then. I think it's maybe a bit different now. I think, but so when I moved to Birmingham, because I would go on the train, and then Mickey the drummer was like, "You got to move to Birmingham," and kind of pushed me out the door, and it becomes you don't think you're going to be there. You go for it because you're like, well, I want to do it for as long as I can, and then somehow it just carried on. And then after a while, you go, well, this is what I do, and it's what I like, what I love, and then you get better at your instrument. Because I started as a drummer and not a bass player, and at first I just went for it because, well, why not? You never imagine that 30 odd years later you're still going to be doing it. After a while, you become, oh, bloody hell, this is what I do. And you go so far, and you go, what else am I going to do? I've often thought, what do I do? But it's kind of strange when with my imagination or whatever, now I have kids, I start creating, I thought, I'm going to start writing kids' books, because I'm a bit of a big kid. So when I'm with my kids and I'm trying to tell them stories, my daughter goes, and she's now started to draw. I don't know whether it's one of my mates always said, he said, "You'll never have a real job. You fucking hate the thought of hard work," which sounds silly, but I know where he was coming from. But I'm thinking, well, you're always trying to follow your heart, I suppose. And I think, well, if I didn't do that, maybe I should start making some kids' books with my daughter. That was at Rich Bitch Studios in Birmingham, which I now believe is relocated. We would be rehearsing the From Enslavement to Obliteration album. I am, as ever, sporting my Cardiac shirt, which is my favourite band ever. And we had 6 rehearsals for the second album. Rich Bitch was frequented by a lot of more of the rock type bands. I mean, the A-side, well, actually Scum was recorded there, A-side and B-side, at different times. I think that point was really interesting, because we came out one day and Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler were playing pool, and we were taken aback, because they were rehearsing for, might have been Headless Cross album, something like that, I think. So we were gobsmacked, sheepishly came over and said hello and how's it going, and Tony's like, "Oh, it's all right, mate," we were like, ran back in, But yeah, that would be 88 probably. Good times. They're all smiling, which is good. Lee and Bill are smiling, which makes a bloody change. They smile a lot now, but back then it was up and down.
How much is the book the story of Shane Embury, or how much of it is the story of Napalm Death?
Well, the book is, it's the story of both. You know, it sounds kind of, it's kind of strange when I think, the story of me, you know, it's like, well, hey. But I guess from where I came from, but it's linked to Napalm Death, and it's part and parcel, really, both. Because where I come from and how I met the Napalm Death guys and how I became a member of Napalm Death, it's all, I think, linear, and it makes sense, you know. And then from obviously being in Napalm Death, the family that was created through the members that came into the band, they became my brothers, really, you know, and are still. I guess diehard fans know somewhat about me, but hopefully people will find out different sides of me, which I'm kind of keen to kind of push forward, I suppose, in some ways, because there's a lot more to me than just the bass player of Napalm Death, really. I mean, Napalm Death's, you know, a socially conscious band, but we're also human beings, so, you know, we kind of raged across Europe for 30 plus years as friends and guitar and band members. We had a lot of fun times, and I mentioned them, you know, as well, alongside the more serious aspects, you know. But I'll find out hopefully stuff that you don't know, and of course Dave's also spoke to my friends, and they probably remember stuff that I don't remember. From my younger years, I was drinking maybe a bit more than I should have, but there you go, you know. I do mention Mick Harris, yeah, the book does talk about me and Mick. Someone who I'm in contact with to this day now, you know, frustrated me massively as a youngster, but we've just reached a good old age now where we've understood our madness, I think. So we get on pretty well, you know. I try to discuss all eras of Napalm because I'm still, when I joined Napalm, or before I joined Napalm, I was really good friends with the original members, so to speak. So I discussed that, Lee, Bill, Nick Bull, and the whole bunch, really. The ones, the classic lineup, as they called it before Barney came into the band, which to me is more the classic lineup, really. But so I talk about everyone. Everyone gets a good chop, really. It's just one of those things you think about, because I mean, when I joined Napalm Death so many years ago, you know, thinking about doing a book, you know, really back then, it's not really on your thoughts. But look, after so many years, the idea of doing a book seemed, the right timing, I suppose. Because I mean, I would joke about it, I suppose, with friends in some ways, because as years go by, you build up loads of memories. You know, I can remember gigs or things that happened probably more than like last week or something. And because over the years, besides Napalm Death, I met a lot of great people I traded tapes with back in the day, and then I managed to meet on tour, then form projects with them, and of course, my heroes I met, you know, and become friends with. These are all collections of important things, I think, which people would probably feel, you know, chuffed to read, maybe, I guess, you know, I suppose. And also, I'd like to think I don't know, I come from a pretty down-to-earth background, so it's nice to sort of be able to have the chance to do something like this, I guess. But that classic, yeah. I cut my hair off because I was infatuated with straight edge hardcore, which lasted for about a week. I went on tour with Heresy, which actually the guy in the middle is Mitch Dickinson, one of my oldest friends, and Pete Giles on the right. He actually didn't play bass on the Unseen Terror album, but was on the cover nevertheless. It's in Mitch's bedroom in Broseley, covered in flyers. I cut my hair off. I said I'd gone straight edge for a week. I went on tour with Heresy and they brought 8 cases of beer in. It was a game changer. No, sorry, couldn't do it. And there you go. Henceforth the hair started to grow back. But that was the Unseen Terror photograph.
Are you straight edge now?
No, not by choice anyway.
So that was the only week?
It was a week. I mean, I haven't drank for a while. I mean, I drank a little bit here and there, but I haven't drank for a long time. But, you know, you're young, you know. Mitch cut his hair off and I thought, well, maybe I should follow suit. And thought, nah, I don't think that's a really good idea. Got my Crumbsuckers shirt on there, which a friend of mine from New York sent me. Crumbsuckers was a great hardcore band from New York. one of my favourites. But yeah, that was for the Unseen Terror album, which is, I was playing drums on that record actually. You know, I'd always half joke over the years about, oh, one of these days I'll do a book, you know. Just kind of, and then of course you realise after, well, you don't realise, it's just that the situation, the opportunity arises, and then you go, oh, bloody hell, I mean, I was 19 when I joined Napalm, now I'm 55. And to some people, to a lot of people, like, of course it's important. I don't, that's definitely important, people must read this. It's just that you're kind of flattered, but you realise that some people would like to read it, so. Then you remember, and Barney was great because Barney was like, oh, can't be one of those books where you just talk about running around naked at a festival. And I'm like, well, I can't go. We'll mention that one time when I did run around naked at a festival, but of course it's mixed with hopefully serious stuff. I'm not just lucky. You have a chance to do something, and you somehow managed to make. I always wanted to be in a band. Sounds very cliche, you know, and yeah, so here I am. So if I can do it, I think anyone else can hopefully do it. So that's always nice, isn't it? You know, to sort of some person can read it and go, but yeah, I can have a go at that myself. You know, I think that's what's good about coming from the Midlands, because you saw Sabbath and Priest, and they were just down there, and Slade. I mean, Slade, more hard rock, but I remember just watching them on the news, and they were obviously just down the road. You know, so to me it was like, well, if they're doing it, there's got to be some chance, I guess. My dad would always go, oh, it'll be rubbish. I'm like, oh, well, there you go. But then, of course, when you start playing and making a bit of success for yourself, it would change his attitude a little bit. So, you know, but yeah, it's just weird thinking about all these things, you know. But nice at the same time. That old chestnut. Barney dyed his hair blonde. I have no idea why, but if he was happy, that's good. I got my Frontline Assembly shirt on there, into our industrial stuff, and that was on, I think, the tour with Sepultura in America. It's in the Nevada desert. Mitch was born in New York but moved to Las Vegas before he joined Napalm, and he always wanted to do a photo shoot out in the desert, but because of the heat you had to get up at crazy o'clock, so that was probably about 5-6 a.m. you know. We've probably all been drinking. You can see by Danny's really enthusiastic expression there that he wasn't very happy to be up. Danny doesn't like getting up in the morning at all, even to this day, really. I'm lucky enough in the fact that in Birmingham we had, the band was a family. I mean, Barney always lived elsewhere, but there was always me, Jesse, Midge and Danny, and we have that house, and now it's just me and Danny's house. So I always have this place to go besides my family house where I enjoy solitude. So I go there to think and to record and to think. Whatever. My God, Barnes being rather punkish on that one. That would be, I think, around 1992. Utopia Banished album. I got my Lush shirt on. Mitch has got his Curve shirt on. That would be a 1992 Utopia Banished album. And we did several photo sessions around London. I think we did that one. And on the tubes, because it's underground metal, we did like one with says underground on it. And then, of course,
very clever.
Very clever, of course.
Someone got paid a lot of money for that.
We were stretching the boat there, and then we went to the Change Your Life Berlin Wall in the War Museum, I think it is. Yeah, Barnes being a bit outrageous there, which isn't. He doesn't do that so much anymore. But yeah, younger for sure. I'm trying to look mean for some bizarre reason.
Hungover?
No, I just think if I went through a period, I thought it was cool to like stare menacingly. I realise I generally look like that anyway. I talk about my relationship with Barney. I mean, we're brothers, we're family, but we're chalk and cheese because obviously we're two essential parts of Napalm, I guess. But we also differ sometimes in our opinions. Perhaps that's what makes it work. You know, there's a weird process of when we record our albums for sure. But yeah, I talk about Barney. It's been quite a long time for sure since the last Napalm album, so we're gonna. I mean, I've definitely got a load of ideas, lots of ideas recorded already for Napalm. So there's plenty to tackle with Napalm. It's always a weird thing really because I have a family life, you have this mad balance, but sometimes you think, oh, I need to slow it down, but then you realise a massive part of my DNA is the fact that I have to create music. It's not something I choose. Sometimes I have to do it. Since like the early 90s, I always loved experimental music. like industrial, ambient, all kinds of stuff. I always liked loads of stuff. But I kind of got sidetracked, and then around about 2017 I was touring with one band and I had my little iPad. So right, I'm going to start messing around with GarageBand, and I did, and I started researching into other things, and I got a new MacBook, bunch of sound libraries, and just made like loads of music, and then started building my studio right before the pandemic kicked in. So when it kicked in, I had something to do. But me and the guitarist from Napalm recorded 3 or 4 albums of stuff. We just we didn't stop. But of course you couldn't really do much with it because the labels had kind of shut down a bit. So now a lot of that stuff's coming out now. And that's Mr. Russ Russell. It would have been during COVID. I think we were probably recording some Tronos or Dark Sky Burial or both. Because I remember when the whole COVID thing kicked in, it was like, I think I was allowed to go there to record, but you kind of had to kind of keep yourself, obviously, to each other, so to speak. But we booked like 10 days. I'm not sure whether it was musical or just therapeutic or just to hang out together, really. We made a lot of great music. It was kind of nice just the two of us being there, and we had our food, and they just didn't leave the building for like 10 days, just making music. So that's Milwaukee Metal Fest. That's my good friend Dan Lilker, Nuclear Assault Anthrax founder, and on the left my friends Carl Stokes and Ian Buchanan from Shropshire, just up the road from me, from the band Cancer. Me and Carl work together now in various projects, musically. It's kind of strange because we come from that metal background. I used to go and see Carl's old band in Ironbridge in '85, and then he did his thing, I did mine. Then we've come back around again, so we're doing a lot of experimental music together. That would be me and Andreas from Sepultura. Sepultura are really nice guys. When we recorded the Harmony album in Florida, I think Sepultura were really becoming popular, and they were getting a little bit of sellout from, I don't know, whoever, God knows why, because each album they did was progressively faster and heavier, I felt. And so Max said, well, we're going to show you sellout, we're going to bring Napalm Death down and play with us, And that's when we first met them in Brazil in 1990, and afterwards we did the tour together for 6 weeks with them, which is a big help for us, really, to get noticed more over there. But really nice guys. We toured with Sepultura, Sacred Reich, and Sick of It All. We did quite a lot of shows. You kind of work it out like 120, 140 plus a year, and then of course you had the other projects where, like, some weekends I would do 3 bands over the weekend. People say they would come off tour and they go, "Oh yeah, you look great." I'm like, all right, fair enough. Thank you very much. This photograph here is, again, Lee, Bill, Mickey Harris sticking his tongue out, me with shorter hair. I'm not sure the cap's on there. Have I got an Unseen Terror cap on there? No, I have not. But we're pulling faces. I mean, that would be from like 1988. Probably in Europe, maybe somewhere. Bill was always very serious looking. He's not so much now, but Mickey liked the camera. I mean, we were young, I think, and there was... I mean, we were just, the band was like, because of John Peel and such, becoming more and more popular, and we were kind of, we were happy about it, but we were also kind of, didn't know how to deal with it, I don't think. And I think particularly back then, in the hardcore scene, there was, I'm not saying jealousy, but, I mean, because I came from a metal background, but also jumped into the punk scene, to me it was everything I kind of wanted. Not in a sort of money-making way, but it was like, well, I'm happy. But some people felt uncomfortable, a little bit like, oh God, we're getting popular, and kind of nervous about it. I don't know why, because later on Lee and Bill went into bands which more embraced that scene than even Napalm, I feel. But we were friends, but we were young as well, So we were probably bitching at each other, childishly, but in a good way. The scene that Napalm Death came from was a punk scene where it was, at that point, I'm sure the CD medium was just coming in. You were called sellouts just for having a CD, which wasn't really your choice. It was the next step from a record label's point of view. So people were very nervous about stuff around that kind of scene. And I mean, I remember, I think from Lee's point of view, coming from the punk background compared to like now, he's more into the stoner rock scene, I guess. At that point, he would have been nervous and maybe a touch afraid just to go, well, look, we're still the same people. We're not millionaires or anything like that. We're just in a van doing our gigs, going to squats booked by people in Europe. It's too easy for some people just to go, well, hey, you're selling it. And that happens nowadays as well. It's too easy to point fingers at bands. And to me, it's an alternative lifestyle, which if you're living that, that's a good thing, really. Especially back then, I never understood it. I remember, because Napalm Death, knowing them before I joined the band, and the Scum album cover is such an iconic cover where, of course, it's very anti-multinationals. That was not a product of its time, but it followed on from the Crash Discharge era, which I understood, but of course, I grew up with Sabbath and stuff. I got my punk to me with GBH and Exploited. I understood it, but it was bizarre. I remember going to Germany once, and some guys going, "Oh, you're drinking a can of Coca-Cola." I'm like, "Yeah, but you're wearing a pair of Nike boots. I mean, what's the point you're trying to tell me here?" It's just like, I'm here to play my music because I love Napalm Death, Go home with nothing in my pocket, I don't care. I had a good time, Things come later, of course, and yes, you make money, but it's still not about that, ever really. So that would be in April of 1990, the first proper time we went to America. Well, we went to America in 89 to play a show, but we were there for a month to do the album in Florida, which was a good time. We saw all of our favourite bands, and I guess the third album is probably arguably a strange one, really, because I think the old school fans didn't quite like it. It was too death metal. But then we got obviously a lot of new fans for it, and we got to spend a month in America, which was nice, Napalm's a strange thing because it started off in a particular way, and I think my argument with the Harmony Corruption was always the fact that because it was recorded in Florida, musically it was structured similar to Mentally Murdered, but because it was a little different guitar tuning, completely different sound, people think, "Oh, you've changed." And of course, Barney came in at that point. It wasn't Lee Dorian. But if it had a similar sound to the Mentally Murdered, I don't think people would have noticed that much, really. But these things happen. It changes for good or better. I mean, the band still evolved constantly after that, When Barney, Jess and Mitch joined, they're the sort of the new boys, so to speak. They didn't quite know what to say. And so the album after Harmony, Utopia, was... Some people thought that was a return, but even that was structurally, guitar-wise, different, but faster. But each album gives on changing. Especially when you're in the middle of it, you don't always think it does, but then when you listen back to them, you go, "Oh wow, they all sound different." The fifth album we did when we were licensed to Columbia was a hard one to do, so we have mixed emotions on it. But a lot of my friends, it's their favourite album. But you remember some of the hard times about it. But when you get to the point where you've done like 16 albums and you can look back at it and go, "Wow," you can be really respectful about it. So I don't regret anything. Fans of Napalm, I mean, I'm sure they're the same for a lot of other bands. I mean, they're very, very dedicated to Napalm Death. And some fans have become good friends over the years because you see them every other tour, or or you'll get to meet certain particular fans, and they will tell you things that about Napalm Death that's really important to them. I mean, lyrically and musically, it's helped people through really dark times, in their lives, which in turn heavy metal and punk did for me, or music in general. It's emotional for me, always has been. It's a way to channel emotions musically, I guess. So fans have been very supportive to us, especially, and also to me outside of Napalm Death, give me the time of day with the projects, I'm not sort of delusional. I don't sort of think, "Oh, I'm the bass player of Napalm Death, my next project's going to be just as popular." I did because I like it. That's the main point. But of course, fans will check it out, and some will like it, some won't. But it's there's a network or a link or a family that is established. Which I think alongside some other bands like Melvins or something like Napalm Death's definitely one of those for me. But yeah, we've on tour. It's nice to have a fan turn up that we know is a friend, really. So it's kind of cool. When fans tell me that Napalm Death music's helped them through dark times, it does make me feel good, but it also takes me back to how I definitely felt as a kid, but I forgot. Because I do this, I'll just say, because you'll find it in the book anyway, I did this Jungian analysis. I've been part of it for 3 years with a friend of mine, and it's trying to find out more about the shadow, your inner self, your consciousness. And I remember certain things in the book you'll find out, but I mean, I copied the lyrics from my favourite artists in English, and they got kind of concerned about me. They were like, "Oh, are you okay?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm okay," but these lyrics obviously resonated with me in certain ways and helped me get through. I was bullied at school a lot. I mean, most people probably were, I suppose, but so metal got me through, so when people tell me that, I can relate to them, Some people reach out to me on Instagram also, and they say, "Hey, this is happening," or they're young musicians, and I'm trying to encourage them the best way I can, because especially it's hard to, when you play extreme music. I'm not sure about today as much, maybe, I'm sure it is, but back then, if you weren't pop orientated, then you're not going to make it, It was hard for people to see. It wasn't about making it was about following your heart, really. And it's interesting, like when I read stuff by some of my favourite bands and what they went through at the time, it's kind of similar. So it's only natural for me to welcome people who are into Napalm Death and what they think and they felt about the band, because I'm flattered, and it encourages me to carry on, really.